I know I don't usually do review things about theoretical stuff, but this is one of those bundles that's actually kind of sort of interesting to me because of it has some stuff in it that's just cool, I guess is one way to put it. Anyway, though, 14th anniversary bundle. You get 6 T6 ships and a T3 ship, which honestly, people mathing this figured out that this goes for the usual 17.5 thousand, which comes out to the price of a, a little less than 6 T6 ships. So everything after this is basically just icing on the cake. Now, Liberated Borg King Nano Probes. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's actually any good. And that is what we're going to look at. It's like, okay, I'm not exactly what you would call a top tier DPSer, so, I'm not really someone who'd. I'm more the kind of person who comes up with fun build ideas, some of which actually work out pretty nicely, some of which I decide that I'm going to tweak it several times, and usually switch to a different ship if it really fails horribly. Anyway, though, whatever. So, there are a few errors in this blog, apparently. But for the starting one-time bundle exclusives. Title, Assimilator. That's not actually a one-off. Okay, technically, you claim an item that gives you the title Assimilator, and then that item is unreclaimable. However, the item unlocks a different item that is reclaimable by all of your characters. So this is functionally an account unlock. It's not actually a one-time item. All of these other things, of course, are just items that you get and on whichever. Other than the starship slots, I know that all of these are just things you can stuff into your account bag. Some of them you can even sell in the exchange. Anyway, though, so other things. The phaser rifle. Not having the exact stats on this, it actually doesn't sound like a very good rifle, because what makes it cool is fighting things while wearing an EVA suit. Okay, the game does actually have the ability to manually trigger your EVA suit to come on, even when you don't need it. You actually can do that if you want to. So you could run around wearing an EVA suit from, say, the Discovery Reputation, and use this as a rifle and have the full effect. If you really want to. Is that a good idea? I genuinely have no idea because I haven't seen the damage numbers on the rifle. Now, the interesting thing with this is that it mentions that the secondary fire on this isn't one of the standard abilities. It's a knockback effect. And that's interesting. But, again, we don't have a tooltip for the thing. So, I don't know. You know what? Let's see if that's on the wiki. It occurred to me that that's like the one thing I didn't actually check to see if they have on the wiki. Dum 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 dum. Phaser rifle. Page does not exist. Shocking. No, it's not. This blog has been out for less than 24 hours. Having them upload everything into the wiki in 24 hours would be the real shocker here. Oh boy. So, yeah, is it good? I don't know. Don't have enough information. These things. One of the things about these is that since these are designed to be kamikaze drones, they would actually benefit from traits that involve launching pets. Because one of their special effects is reduced hanger launch cooldown. That is kind of interesting to me. And of course, the whole thing is that they engage ramming speed and then explode. Eh, The fact that they have permanently active fire at will is also kind of amusing, but I'm genuinely not sure exactly how. I wouldn't expect these to do a large amount of damage with their beam attacks. Most of their damage is going to be from their self-destruct thing. Okay, so the traits. Um, Kinetic damage resistance feels like, well, a minor side benefit. Plus critical severity. Um, yeah, I'm genuinely not sure exactly how effective this would be because, as Augie pointed out when he was talking about this, is that this isn't phrased as a percentage, so it might actually be up adding to your captain stat and not actually adding directly to the percentage, which if it's the captain stat, that's actually considerably less than if it was actually giving you plus 20% severity. But either way, not that much. Also, I'm genuinely kind of surprised that they have like this large of a difference in whom the ones is because like once every 5 seconds, once every 2 seconds. Okay. Also, I guess it has 10 stacks as the part of the way this mechanic works. All right, moving on to ships. Atlantis Temporal Destroyer, which okay, let's see. Yeah. Oh yeah, you know what? Now that we're onto the ships, I'm going to quickly switch through all of them and go over the specialization stuff they have. Commander Science Command and Miracle Worker on a command carrier. I mean, that's a thing. Apparently they've done that already, so, it's not exactly innovative having this specific combination. But does it suck? No. What I've heard about this was that people actually like really hyped about these Type 7 shuttlecraft. And let's see, Atlantis thingy, um, temporal operative with intel as a secondary. This is kind of interesting because the fact that it means that it gets the whole molecular reconstruction mechanic and all of the weird stuff. The molecular deconstruction beam can actually do a hefty amount of damage if you're running the offense configuration anyways. Okay, so this one is command / miracle worker. This one is temporal operative / intelligence. This one is intelligence / temporal operative. Gee, that seems familiar. Whatever. Active sensor arrays on a science warship. Certainly not bad. Also, it has subsystem targeting on a 4-3 ship. Yeah, we'll get back to that later. And here we have Miracle Worker / Command, which of course gets the innovation effects. Not necessarily what I personally consider to be a interesting idea, but it's not terrible. Oh yeah, this thing also has like cyclical quantum slipstream drive, which is just recharges slightly faster. Whatever. Is it bad? No. Is it a reason I would want to buy the? No. Kind of weak sauce. All right, so let's look at the full stats on these and the pictures, because They have cool pictures. Awani Command Carrier. Now this one, that you don't see the like past version here because of the fact that this one actually has multiple previously existing variants because it uses the constellation, Stargazer, Dakota, Cheyenne skins, and the Mirror Cheyenne skin if you really want to. So you could take this thing, make it look like a Mirror Cheyenne, and have fun with that if you want to. Seating on this one, this one has 2 universal seats, one of which is a lieutenant commander seat, and that actually gives you a pretty hefty amount of flexibility. It's still a 3-3 ship, which is kind of interesting because if I remember right, some of these are actually 4-4s. Because they're not carriers. This one, however, is a double stacked carrier. Oh yeah, Sagan Command Carrier. I think that's the one he was talking about. It's like something that's in many ways very similar. Commander Engineering. Oh, this one's Temporal Op. And it only has 1 universal. Not exactly the same. Alright. The flagship staffing on this is kind of interesting because one thing that occurs to me is what does it mean by allied targets? Because one of the command abilities is that weird thing where you place a zone in space, and when allies fly into that zone, they get healed or something. Would that trigger flagship staffing every time someone flies into it? I'm genuinely not sure exactly how this does the whole concept of target. We set cooldowns on non-specialization firing modes. This is something that's kind of odd to me because of the fact that this specifically means that it's not going to do the intelligence ones or the actually command. Yeah, one of them is a command ability. Kind of odd, but whatever. And firing cycle haste for energy weapons. Sure, why not? 33% might not sound amazing, but when you can stack it with other things that give you firing cycle haste, it gets mental. Apparently, the game breaks and your weapons kind of stop working if you get above 400%, though. Something I heard. Haven't personally tested that. Fleet Power Network. Oh, yeah. These, like I mentioned earlier, is that these have very hefty ability to debuff enemy damage resistances. Okay, let's see what read what this one does, because I could go to the blog, but the wiki was partially written after people looked at the way this stuff actually is in game, and not just copying the blog, because the blog is kind of vague on a lot of this stuff. Oh yeah, this is the one that gives your allies and pets firing modes at random, which this is one of the things I mentioned. What makes it significant that those Borg probe pets don't have a torpedo is that if you give one of them torpedo volley with this, they can't use the torpedo volley. And since they have beam fire at will permanently active, giving them beam overload may or may not actually work right. So it's not necessarily a simple, easy, this is the best thing or the worst thing or anything, honestly. Alrighty then. So, moving on to the Atlantis. Oh yeah, this one. This is an interesting one because the fact that its only universal seat is the Intel seat, and it has one ensign engineer. That's kind of a weakness on this, is that it's, like, unless your build doesn't care about using engineer powers at all, you'll find yourself having some interesting choices to make. But I mean, it's pretty good on tactical as is, and pretty hefty on science. So you could just make the universal engineer, maybe. Dum-dum-dum. Okay, also, weapons. This is a 5-2 vessel. Yes, this thing is a 5-2 vessel. That in and of itself gives people reason to ponder how much they want to make it into an energy weapon based platform. And of course, there's the fact that the new hotness consoles are engineer specific and it only has 2 slots for them. So this would possibly actually get better results out of using the Spire consoles and not the new ones. Oh yeah, that's another thing about this one, is that the new fleet console things, because this has 5 engineering console slots and it's a deck carrier, this thing can slot the new carrier pet boosting consoles and, have fun with having multiples of those. Because this thing could, in theory, slot up to 7 of them. Hey, if you really, really want to up the DPS of your carrier pets, go for it, I suppose, huh? This thing, no. Like, 5, 2, ooh. But again, it's like, that reflects the fact that it only has an instant engineering seat. The molecular reconstruction thing on a ship that's heavily tactical oriented is also interesting because of the fact that you can throw down a whole lot of firepower and then trigger that. Because the way this thing works is this just charges while you're in combat. And once it's charged, then you choose who you want to blast with it. It's not automatically triggered like some of the other abilities. All right, now we have the Chekhov. This one, they don't have the pictures in here, which I find to be a bit disappointing, honestly. Oh, here's a fun trick. Reload the page without actually closing the page. Nope, still. Oh, wait, here's one. Yeah, like I said before on this, is that this really feels like they were mimicking the design aesthetics that they used when doing the Delta Ops bundle. Because like the way it has like angular lines and this entire style of warp nacelle, you see that aesthetic in the Delta Ops bundle ships, which makes sense given that this is a primarily Intel vessel. It's a science Intel vessel. Notably, this one has 2 universal seats that are not spec seats. So you can, customize them however you want. As a heavily offense-oriented science ship, this one has some really, really interesting special powers. Intel or science bridge officer ability applies a bonus exotic particle generation. And then it has a special console ability, which is a fusion cutting beam. Yes, that's an EPG power. Have fun with that. And there's a tunneling graviton lance, which is not a console and thus not something that you can take off and put onto a different vessel. Has a sensor analysis ability because science vessel, subsystem targeting because science vessel. What was the weapons on this again? Oh yeah, this is a 4-3 because it's a science warship. The mastery package, though, is of course a science vessel mastery package because they didn't actually create a specific one for science warships. If they did, they'd probably just change one of these to be bonus energy weapon damage or something. Um, and it has the intel mechanic. And oh, also this one, this is not a bug. Apparently, this is apparently does in fact have a standard cloak, not a battle cloak or anything like that. Just a standard cloak, the weakest cloak in the game. But you know, it is a cloak. Overall, this one, from what I've heard of this, people's thoughts on this, what is that it has the potential to do some really, really nasty space magic DPS because it has this beam. Well, like it has a science commander, so you can throw down a gravity well, then fire this into the middle of the gravity well to kill everything. And of course, you can fire the tunneling graviton lance in to the gravity well too, because why show your enemies mercy? Hey. And last up, we have the Princeton. A lot of people were disappointed with this one because the fact that it has a weird gimmick that it does self-inflicted damage as part of attempting to kill your enemies. Is that a good idea? Probably not. However, it also has a thing that damages your enemies whenever you heal yourself. Which, if you're doing self-inflicted damage, healing the self-inflicted damage, and then doing even more damage because of that, I mean, I can see the logic behind why they would think that maybe possibly this was something kind of sort of effective. Yeah, they've done this before, and no one liked it before. I'm not sure about that, though. Oh, also, one thing that I personally find to be rather disappointing. Disappointing is the best way I can think of to describe this. This is very accurate to the way it looked on screen. Very similar to the Enterprise C shape. Big fat nacelles in a configuration that's not quite the same as that of a Galaxy class. And of course, a kind of similar saucer and secondary hull. But it has a third nacelle sticking out the bottom and arranged in a nearly triangular configuration. Apparently, this is something that the Federation was experimenting with at the time. It's like they hadn't figured out the most efficient stuff yet. Then they decided that the configuration used on the Enterprise D was the most efficient and decided to go with that stuff for most of their ships from then on. Well, one of the things I noticed about this here is that this version has a much more standard nacelle layout because like these pylons are mostly sticking to the side. And also when you look at this, you notice that the neck is much shorter on this one. So it's generally more squat. And the third nacelle is much smaller than the other two and on a very short pylon. Oh, also, it has these things. I'm genuinely not sure exactly what those are supposed to be. Because this has the innovation mechanics, not the disintegration beam thingy. Odd design choice. Don't fully understand it. Because this isn't even the deflector. This is the deflector. This is not the deflector. Don't get it at all. Whatever. In some ways, this does kind of sort of feel vaguely inspired by the Intel stuff, but this is actually a Miracle Worker ship. Yeah, those are one of those things I was mentioning earlier is that the disintegration beam thing, you choose who to hit with it and when to hit them with it. This, you activate abilities that are match the current task list that the game is giving you, and then whichever of these effects was randomly chosen gets triggered. you do have some control over when it gets triggered. However, that might mean delaying activating tactical team so that you can wait until the proper time to trigger the innovation effect. That's what I don't like about the innovation. Not enough control over when the effects pop off. Sometimes I'd rather just save it for later. Anyway, though, I like the idea of having the Niagara in the game, although I'm not sure it's actually any good, unfortunately. Because, as I'm sure other people have commented quite a lot, it has a self-inflicted damage theme. And when you have a build that's designed around self-inflicted damage, taking damage from enemies suddenly hurts even worse than it would normally. You kind of need to, kill the enemies really, really fast, if you can. And that's about it. Oh yeah, that's another thing. I just thought of. Some of these have some very odd designs for their Admiralty ship cards. This is actually a pretty normal one. An engineer heavy ship, okay. Plus engineer per engineering ship. Sure, whatever. Chekhov. This one is odd because it used to be that all of the Admiralty ship cards had one of the stats that was at least 1 point higher than all of the others. This one doesn't. Why? Because the fact that these numbers are derived, at least in part, from the console layout on the ship. But it's only in part. It's not fully derived from the console layout on the ship. Oh yeah, that's another thing about this one that's kind of interesting is the console layout on it. 4521. Yeah, it actually has a universal console slot on it because it's a Miracle Worker ship. But that means that it has, extra console slots. In this one, if you're going to have isomagnetic thingies on your ship, this would actually have room for up to 8 isomags. Could be fun for an energy weapon build. And also, this one has a little bit of bonus power, more than the other ships would have. All right. Oh yeah, let's look at the ship card on this one too. This one, tactical ship, cool, makes perfect sense. Very similar to the Princeton card. I know people don't buy bundle ships for cards, but I personally find it amusing how some of them get made. Like this is made off as a science ship, except that it's equally good at engineering and science. Plus, Eng and Psi per tac ship is a very useful effect, honestly. And this is actually a card that I would be highly likely to throw a tac ship in with. So yeah, that would be a very good Admiralty card, honestly. This one, I mean, it's an Admiralty card that's useful. If you have a really, really heavy tactical assignment, throw this at it. But, it's not one of the ones that I would want to use in an assignment that needs everything. This one, plus win alone. Yeah. There are some assignments where you want to throw ships like that into. Because if it's an assignment that doesn't need more than 40 for any of them to complete it, throw this at it. You only use one ship for the Admiralty mission, and then you're done. Easy stuff. Okay, let's look back and look at this one. This again, it's like with the uh, uh, it was Atlantis. Yeah, like you want something that has a lot of engineering, throw this at it. All right, I think I'm done with this. These all have something interesting about them. I'm genuinely not sure if how useful they would be, but Because this thing, you could do that thing with like the inverted tractor beam repulsors to pull enemies into your area of effect so that you can do radiation damage to them even better. Thing is, the inverted tractor beam repulsors thing is something that has a bad habit of causing you to eat warp core breaches. There is, of course, a specialization thingy for preventing you from eating warp core breaches some of the time, which could be helpful. And of course, there are traits and abilities to give you temporary damage immunity. So, trigger the temporary damage immunity when you think that an enemy's about to warp core breach on top of you. That's a pretty fun trait, honestly. Gotta time it just right, but it will save your butt. Oh yeah, the trait I'm talking about is the one from the old Delta recruit thing. The oldest of the recruiting events and the oldest ship trait that came from a recruiting event. But it's a triggered damage immunity thing. You just push engineering team, hazard emitter, ox to sif, whatever. Some sort of direct hull heal, and immediate immediately afterwards, for a few seconds, you are now immune to damage, except for special damage that ignores it, because people used to use that in order to tank the blast wave from the crystalline entity. The devs didn't like that because you're supposed to run away or die, and people were just being like, haha, screw you, crystalline entity. Because again, the crystalline entity for a certain period of time, it was actually one of the reasons why the developers added the mechanic of waiting for the debriefing to be over. It's because people had actually come up with ways to destroy the crystalline entity in less than 30 seconds. So that sometimes people would warp in after the TFO was already over. Yeah, the devs did not find that to be amusing. Oh well. Anyways, though, enough of that. Not sure exactly how well some of these would actually work out. Augie loves the Atlantis already, and said he thought that the Alani and the Chekhov looks like they'd be fun to play with too. Didn't like the Princeton. Stu1701 didn't like the Princeton either. Self-inflicted damage. Yeah, I can see why people are not a fan of that. We definitely need to have like some sort of stuff to counteract the damage, because one of the things with the self-inflicted damage from this ability, it doesn't prevent you from healing while it's active. So you can just spam heals on yourself. You can't prevent the damage, but you can, attempt to out heal it. And if you have a reasonably tanky build, well, I mean, thing is, that's not a glass cannon DPS thing, and some people like to try for glass cannon DPS, and this would be suicide to try as a glass cannon DPS, which is why they don't want to try it. Oh well. Oh yeah, what did this have for a universal seating? Yeah, okay, this one had 2 universal seats, and this one has a relatively high ranked universal seat, but because it's a lieutenant commander universal seat, but that's the only universal seat it has. Again, lieutenant commander, but this one's universal / intel, and this one actually has the most in the way of universal seats because it has lieutenant commander and an ensign universal, which you'd probably end up using some of that for tactical because it only has a lieutenant tactical. But since this is actually one of those that they mentioned as being something that would actually be able to use beam attacks reasonably well. Oh well. Well, that's enough about this. See you guys later.